So AI is awesome when it's working, but the thing that I hate the absolute most is when it has bad memory, or when it forgets, or when it's asking you for something you've already prompted before, because now you have to go in and reprompt it. You have to spend extra tokens, waste more time. It kills your workflow state, and it also has you questioning the work that you've been doing up until then. So over the past 5, 6 months, I created this handoff skill that alleviates this problem so that when it's working across different projects or if you're working across different agents, there's continuity, it knows what it's working on and continue it forward. A few constraints though. So what you're seeing here is my different subscriptions. First constraint is that I don't like using API keys. API keys can get pretty expensive pretty quickly if you're not keeping a watchful eye over it. And so I like to maximize my subscriptions first before I ever API keys. I use Claude Code, Codex, Cursor, Hermes agents. I'm paying $20 for their basic plans. And I feel like I'm getting 10x of what I'm actually paying because a lot of these tokens are subsidized by these companies. Over the past month, I think with just Claude alone, I've probably saved over $1,000 to $2,000 in tokens. And this is just Claude alone. I use Codex, I use Cursor, I use Hermes, and the amount that I'm saving is out of this world. So I'm going to continue leveraging subscriptions before I ever tap into API keys. Constraint number two is I prefer being agent agnostic, meaning I don't like being tied down to one provider. If I can help it, I will use as many different providers as I can so that I'm not constrained into one provider. I can continue using their frontier models, continue to use the latest and greatest tools that they come up with, leverage all of this while not being bound to one provider. And so the problem with this is that there is discontinuity between agent work because they're not sharing the same context memory. And also within that, there's project discontinuity because then you have to re-explain what's going on in the project to the agent. On top of the fact that the agent doesn't already know what it's working on or where it last left off of. And these companies aren't going to make a fix for this. So like Anthropic's not going to make it easy to pass on work to Codex. Then you also have things like Cursor where you can really use any model as long as they have it in their pick list. Similar to Hermes agent, it's an agent harness. You can still have your agent use Soul or Fable. So now the problem is how do these agents, how can they all talk to one another so that you can continue to leverage your subscription while being agent platform agnostic? So that's kind of where I was left off of. So over the course of 5, 6 months, ever since Claude bots released to OpenClaw, Hermes agents, all this stuff, I've been really trying to maximize my agent use. And a lot of that has been trying to get this stuff to work together so that, again, I can be agent agnostic and I can still continue to use my subscription seamlessly. And so this is what I've built. I'll demo it in a bit, but basically the glue to all of this is GitHub. And so this is how all of this works. The flow of this is that you can choose and start from whatever agent you want. It'll then sync with your GitHub. So you have to make sure that you have a GitHub repo. You have some knowledge of GitHub. The purpose of it is so that within your projects, there's history. It uses this thing called Git that basically helps track the different versions you have, whenever things are changed, updates are made, and all the stuff will live inside your GitHub in a repository. And so when you use my skill, it'll basically orient itself so it knows what stage it's in. Third part here, this skill will create an entry point repo, which then your agents and whatever agents you're using will point towards so that it can see the context and the context markdown file. That's just here, that's a project map that shows at a macro level where things are, what you're working on. And then you have the agents file that shows the different operating rules for each agent that you're using. So if you're using Cursor, GitHub, Claude, it's again orienting itself in it. And then you have the connections, ensuring that you have the proper connections set. Otherwise, this whole skill will not work. A big part of that is GitHub. So if you don't have GitHub, it'll help guide you into creating one. And so with this HQ, it'll also point to whatever other knowledge base you have, whether it's a database, an agentic system, second brain, whatever, a SQL database, whatever it is. If you want to use that, have that in context, your HQ repo can point to it. When you run this skill, it'll ask if you have any of this stuff so that it can point to it and use that as context. Now, that's the work at an agent level. At a project level, and at least how I work is in projects. And so I have different projects, and within each project, what the skill will do is create a state markdown file. And this is to help guide whatever agent it works with as to the big decisions, what the whole goal or scope of the project is, what the current state, there's something blocking the project, and every project will have a state markdown file so that whenever an agent comes along, it knows exactly what's going on. After you selected your project, your state.md file is basically going to tell your agent what did you do, where did you leave off of, what's the current state of the project. The next piece of that is the handoff portion. So once you've done your work, tested it, pushed your commits, it'll rewrite this state file so that it knows what's changed and it'll push that into GitHub. And so once that's pushed to GitHub, now you have the history of what's been changed in your project, as well as what the agent should be telling the next agent what to do. Some people work off of VS Code or the terminal or some other IDE, and they have their agents pointed to their folder structure. And the issue there is that although the agent can see the file structure and what files to work off of, it doesn't really know what it's done previously, especially if you're moving from agent to agent. Some of that context is lost. And even if you try to compact that in the summary itself, whenever it's compacted, there is knowledge and data that's lost. And so the point here is that we're utilizing Git as kind of the glue to all of this, as well as markdown files to help the agent remember what it's done and also have a history of it. So you see here that I've connected mine to Linear. The cool thing about Linear is that they have an MCP that your agents can basically interact with. And all of this is you don't really need a Linear. I only use this so that there's extra and added detail for my projects. So my agents can be a bit more granular in working with projects. You don't need this. I just want that extra and added templatized project workflow already in my system. And they have a pretty generous free tier. So I'd say go ahead and check that out. I'm not sponsored. So that's the Linear Projects Management. If you're not working on a lot of projects and you're just doing one thing, you want to keep things simple, it's totally fine. And so again, once your work is done, your handoff has been completed, the state file has been rewritten and updated, it goes back to GitHub. And so say now you've hit your limits with Claude and you want to go continue the project in Codex, you can. The transition is a lot more seamless. And at this point, some of you guys might be thinking, hey, I'd use Claude to plan, and then I use Codex to actually execute and write the code for my projects. The thing I'll say about that is I think the models we have now, the frontier models available, are so good that they can do anything. I think they're so good that you don't even need to orchestrate them in that way anymore. Sure, I think you can have different agents to do different things. I think that just for me adds another level of complexity. In fact, one of the things I want to try in the future is using the models like GLM or forget that other one. But basically, I don't think you really need to orchestrate your agents in that way anymore because they're just that good. The whole purpose of this is for two things: so that I can continue using my subscriptions, and two, so that I can remain agent agnostic, platform agnostic. So yeah, this is how this skill works. So I think the MVP in all of this is GitHub. If you aren't familiar with GitHub yet, I'd be familiar with it because I think it's going to remain the thing in the future that's going to allow people like myself or people that want to be agent agnostic so that we can continue to use these tools together. And so I have the link to this down below where you can access it. This wasn't easy, but I do want to give this out for free because I think it'll help out a lot of people, save time, save tokens, and hopefully things like this can become more commonplace or for people that want to continue using subscriptions and want to be agent agnostic. So at a high level, what this will do is it'll instruct your agent to create an HQ entry point repo. It'll also create that state markdown file, and it'll ask you questions if you have anything that you want to connect your HQ repo to. It'll also ask you to set the connections for your GitHub. And yeah, it'll basically just grill you so that this workflow works. As a quick demo, to start off, I prompted Claude Code to basically just create a simple health dashboard using the PIMO Native American Diabetes dataset from UCI, it's university. Didn't just call this a demo project number 3. And so you can see here that it's already oriented itself in the agent's markdown file and the HQ registry with that entry point. It's figuring out what it doesn't have and what it needs. And so there it asks me, what kind of dashboard do you want it to be? Single static HTML file, I'm totally fine with for now. We can continue it in later on. It uses my front end design Claude skill. Crazy because it uses a color palette that pays respects to the Pima Native American tribe. And so now it goes into making the dashboard. And so we can go ahead and open that right here. And this is what the dashboard looks like, right? So it's a pretty aesthetic looking dashboard, like it's solid. You can even change the different variables here. The important thing here is that you can see that it's created basically all of the files necessary for it to continue doing its work in case I start it up on another agent. So I'll continue this now on Codex. Here, one of the necessary things is I have GitHub connected. I'm going to have the permission set there. So let's continue this dashboard. I'm going to prompt this with the mindset that, hey, I just ran out of Claude Code tokens, and now I want to continue this in Codex or ChatGPT. I want to see statistical significance in this. Right now, the dashboard is showing me a descriptive data set. I want to see statistical significance. So I'm going to ask here Codex to basically update the dashboard so that I can see statistical significance with whatever hypothesis test it decides to run. Be creative and find a way creative in how you illustrate this on the dashboard. So what it's basically going to do now is find in the data things that are actually statistically relevant or have statistical significance. This is pretty complex, but I want to see what it does, see how it picks up work and adds features to it. Send that out. So let's make this a little bit bigger here. So you can see here, it's going through that entry point first. It's reading the context file. It's also taking the agent's markdown file into consideration. It's pulling in the data set, and now it's choosing what to show on the dashboard. It's first going into that entry point, and then it's taking into account the context markdown file, the agent's markdown file, and it's pulling in that data set from whatever database it made. Now it's trying to view the database on Chrome. Yep. And so here it is. It's actually done it, right? Like it's still static, but it's visually checking its own work to see if everything is functioning correctly. And it's even testing it on mobile, which is nuts. It's showing all the stuff that it's added, and you can see that it's committed it locally. So the files are in my computer locally, but it hasn't pushed anything into GitHub just yet. And the way I have the skill set up is you need to explicitly tell it to publish and push the changes onto GitHub to continue to work on the files here. So it's making all these different changes, and let's go ahead and take a look at the dashboard here. So yeah, I mean, there it is. Here are the different variables ordered by statistical significance. And you can see here, glucose has the highest signal in predicting if someone's going to have diabetes or not. Just interesting. You can still change this stuff, and it's kept it, hasn't changed anything crazy. Apparently it also works on mobile. So yeah, I mean, clearly it's working. So as you can see, the flow here is pretty seamless. And so the important things to clarify, the basic requirements to having something like this working is a large part of it is having a GitHub repository, giving permission and access. And again, once you have the skill file, it'll create these different markdown files. And yeah, I mean, apart from that, basic stuff like never storing your password or API keys, that should be an environment file separate. At the end of it, it'll always ask you if you want to push or merge, meaning just think like having things published, it'll ask you explicitly. And when something isn't working, it'll let you know. But basic requirements, again, a large part of this is that you have a GitHub account, giving your agents, whatever agent you're on, access and permission and connection to your GitHub account. So you're going to have to tinker with the permissions there, and it'll help you when you have the skill down. It's not going to work if you don't have GitHub. That's a big part of what makes this workflow work. But apart from that, you should be good to go. And again, here, see, it says the system will basically work if every agent has access to your repos and can read, update, so it has a correct permission set. And if you have all those things, you should be good to go. So that's how the skill works. It's not perfect. I think it also adds some complexity. If your workflow is simple, you don't want to do something like this, I totally get it. I'm more for keeping things simple than making it complex. But for me, this is how I like to work, and I don't like having to re-explain myself all the time. And I find that I'd rather have a system like this running so that when I hit my token limits, I can hop onto another agent, continue the work there, and trust that everything in the project and the context of the project is being taken into account. Feel free to download it, use it, add, remove, whatever it is you need to so that it can work in your system. If any of this stuff helped, don't forget to like, leave a comment, let me know what you think. It really helps the channel. My name is Ramil. I work as an AI consultant building AI automations. Prior to this, I was a statistical analyst working with a few Fortune 500 companies, basically to the point where I've automated a lot of my own work and ended up leaving corporate to basically start my own AI consulting firm. So if you're interested in working, I have a link down below to schedule some time. Other than that, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.